I'll try to go now. We'll see what happens. It's hard. I like storing the stories.
Does everyone have a sheet?
No, it's getting hot in here.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I have to admit that the catalyst for this Shiur, believe it or not, is not really about Purim, it's about Shabbos. But how can you speak about wine so close to Purim and not mention Purim? As it says, a lesson for Shabbos and Purim. It really began Parshas Yisro. I was learning the halachas of Kiddush, Zachar Yom HaShabbos, the Kadsho, the obligation to remember Shabbos by expressing the Kedusha of Shabbos, the holiness of Shabbos. And I took notice about the halachos of what the obligation is to make Kiddush on wine. And then I thought that maybe it's important to understand why is wine so significant. The truth is, anybody who has experienced any religious Judaism, it's not a chiddush for them that wine is significant in our religion. As a matter of fact, the Aruch HaShulchan has a Haggadah for Pesach, and he says, we ask 4 questions Pesach night. How come we don't ask the question, why do we drink 4 cups of wine? He gives 2 answers. One answer is basically, a Jew never asks a question like that, because we know that we always have an excuse. I'm not talking about whiskey or beer, to drink wine. We drink wine on Shabbos. We drink wine at the bris. We drink wine at a wedding. We're always, we drink wine at Havdalah. We're always drinking wine. But I thought that maybe Shabbos, to understand what really is the significance of wine. Is there some special message? Is there some special lesson, some special secret? And because of that reason, I'll start with Shabbos. Just anything I say about wine obviously can be applied to Purim too, even though as far as Purim is concerned, it's not about Kiddush, maybe it's about drinking wine. I would just mention that many of the major Rishonim point out that when we speak about drinking on Purim, we speak about wine. The Rambam says it clearly. A person has to drink wine. Rashi says has to drink wine. And many Rishonim say the reason is because various reasons, but they drink wine at all the parties, so they drink wine on Purim also. So obviously, drinking wine, not necessarily in excess, but drinking wine, whether it's wine or even my father drink grape juice certain years, there is you have to drink something similar to that on Purim. So obviously, any lesson, anything would come out would apply to Purim too. But I'd like to focus mostly on Shabbos. So the source for all these halachos comes from a Gemara Maseches Psachim, Daf Kuf Vav Amud Aleph, and there the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, our rabbis learned Zacharis Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho. You have to remember Shabbos to make it holy. Zochreo L'Yayin, and how do you remember it? You have to remember it on wine. So then the Gemara goes on, Ein Le'Level Yom. So the Gemara first assumes that the bigger Kiddush, the more original idea is to say Kiddush in the daytime, and how do we know at night? And the Gemara concludes that really, that on the Deraisa level there is an obligation to make Kiddush at night, and in the daytime that's only rabbinic. However, the Gemara does say, it says, Zachar Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho, at the very end, Zochreo L'Yayim B'chnisaso. Gemara says there's an obligation to remember Shabbos on wine when Shabbos comes in. Ein Le'Level, we know only at night. How do we know the daytime? Zachar Yom HaShabbos. So making Kiddush in the daytime is definitely the Rabbanan. It's rabbinic origin. Making Kiddush at night would be a Torah obligation to make Kiddush at night. There's a machlokas Rishonim whether or not this obligation to make Kiddush on wine, is that also a Torah obligation or only rabbinic? Maybe according to the Torah, all you have to do is say Kiddush, say some words, like we do during the prayers, during the tefillah. However, to make the Kiddush on wine, that's only rabbinic. And if you look at source number 4, so that's Tosfos. Tosfos says that making Kiddush on wine is a smachtahi. It's only a rabbinic law, and the Torah, the Gemara mentions a pasuk. That's because sometimes the Gemara will do that when it comes to certain laws that are rabbinic. They will base it on a pasuk. I heard actually from my father. My father explained what this idea is. He says that back in the in the days of Chazal, so the Jews were very familiar with psukim, and therefore when they would connect Dinei D'Rabbanan, laws of D'Rabbanan, to Psukim, it was very easy to remember it. Or the Maral says maybe there's a deeper idea in the Psukim where the Rabbanan learned out to base their laws on these Psukim, but it's really a Din D'Rabbanan, it's a law of rabbinic origin, and it was just based on a pasuk. However, Tosfos asked the question that it seems from other Gemarot that maybe the obligation to make he says maybe the obligation. He says the Gemara goes on and we say that when it says that women are mechuyavot in Kiddush, so he says that would only be in the Kiddush itself, but on the wine it's only midrabanan. And he brings a proof from Maseches Nazir. Now, what's the proof from Maseches Nazir? So Maseches Nazir does those laws. A person who has taken upon himself to abstain from coming in contact with a dead body, a Nazir, drinking wine, and cutting their hair. So Gemara, if you look, we'll come back to this. If you look at source number 5, the Gemara says that Gemara mentions the question, Miyayin v'shecher yazir, a person has to separate himself from wine and an alcoholic beverage. So ahumi boyile. So the Gemara says this is needed. Lesor yayin mitzvah ki yayin rishus. That a nazir can't drink wine, but not only can't he drink wine, but even wine which is an obligation to drink, he is forbidden to drink. So Gemara asks, well, what wine is someone obligated to drink? What he says, so maybe it means you can't drink the wine of Kiddush and Havdalah. So the Gemara says, Hare mushba v'omer lav mehar Sinai. Now there are two ways to read this Gemara. Gemara says that what wine is a person obligated to drink? It says a person is obligated to drink maybe the wine of Kiddush v'Avdallah, and therefore the Torah tells us that a Nazir doesn't drink this wine even though he's obligated. So the way Tosfos, Rabbeinu Tam, learns this Gemara, and that's in source number 7, the Gemara is saying is, a person is obligated on a deraisa level to drink wine at Kiddush and Avdallah? Hare mushba va'omer love mehar Sinai? This comes from Har Sinai? It's not a Torah law. Why would the Torah tells us that a Nazir is not allowed to drink wine of Kiddush if the Torah never obligates us to drink wine of Kiddush? So the Gemara concludes, and the Gemara says that the Torah is telling us that if a Nazir took a promise not to drink wine, then he becomes a Nazir. He can't drink the wine even though he took that promise. That's the pasuk. However, but the Gemara is definitely implying, according to the way Tosfos learns the Gemara on source number 6, that a Nazir, that there's no Torah obligation to drink wine at Kiddush. And if you go back to source number 4, in the second line, Tosfos says Kedemash Reish Nazir. He says the Kamer Miyayim B'Shecher Yazor Lesor Yayim Mitzvah Ki Yayim Rishus Uparech Mai Nihu. What is that? Kiddush v'Avdallah. Gemara says Kiddush v'Avdallah. There's no Torah obligation. It does not come from Har Sinai. So he says. So the Gemara finishes off. So he says so Tosfos, the bottom line, he says that the obligation to drink wine at Kiddush and Avdallah is only of rabbinic origin. That's what Tosfos says, and that is actually the opinion of the Rambam. And in general, I always thought that's the accepted interpretation. And in general, if you ask anyone in the street, they'll tell you, yeah, drinking wine at Kiddush Friday night, that's rabbinic. However, the Tosfos at the very end mentions the Shita of Rashi. Shita of Rashi, he says, "Va'od matzina lemeimar." The Kiddush alayayin devar Torah. That making Kiddush on wine is a din d'oraita. It's a Torah obligation. Drinking the wine is only d'Rabbanan, but it's not a Torah obligation to make Kiddush on wine, and the obligation to drink is only d'Rabbanan. And then, and that is actually the Shita of Rashi in Maseches Nazir in source number 8. And when the Gemara says, why would you need a pasuk to tell you you're allowed to the Gemara says you need a pasuk to tell you that you're allowed to drink. The pasuk of Nazir comes and tells you that you're allowed, that a Nazir cannot drink wine. And the Gemara is asking, even wine of mitzvah? How can the Torah tell us that when you're already obligated midiraita to drink wine? So now, according to Rashi, the Gemara is saying, how can there be a pasuk to tell us a Nazir is not supposed to drink wine of Kiddush when that's a Torah obligation? But that really is that is the opinion of Rashi. Rashi holds, and Tosfos mentions it, that there's a Torah obligation to drink wine also on the night of on Shabbat night. There's a Torah obligation. The Ran in source number 10, will come back to the Aruch HaShulchan in a few minutes. The Ran in source number 10, he holds that there's a Torah obligation to drink wine on Friday night. And what's his proof? So there's a very famous Gemara, very famous question that's asked in Masechet Shabbat. What happens in the days when there was a lot of poverty and a person could only afford to do one mitzvah? Let's say, for example, a person could only afford to either buy candles for Shabbat, or if a person could go ahead and if a person can go ahead and not just buy candles he says, I'm sorry, I take it back. So if you look at source number 9, so he quotes the Ran, and he says the Ran says that we have the Gemara says, let's say a person has money only to buy a candle for Hanukkah, or to spend on Kiddush Hayom. So everyone knows that if you have a choice of buying a candle for Shabbat or for Hanukkah, the candles of Shabbat come first. Because of Shalom Bayis, the candles of Shabbat symbolize peace in the house. However, what happens if a person goes ahead and the person has enough money either to buy for Ner Chanukah, to light a Chanukah candle, or to make Kiddush? So the Gemara says that really the Chanukah comes first, because Chanukah is persumeniso of Chanukah. You spread the miracle. So the Ran asks, what's the problem? He says, you see, after all, the Ram says, how can we push off Kiddush Hayom? Kiddush Hayom is a din d'oraita Torah obligation. Lighting a Chanukah candle is only rabbinic. So whatever the reason is, Kiddush Hayom should come first. So he says to the Ran, the Ran says that no, on Kiddush Hayom, you're able to go ahead and you're able to do Kiddush Hayom on challah, on bread, and therefore you have a choice of doing Kiddush Hayom on bread or Ner Chanukah. He said if you can do Kiddush Hayom on bread and Ner Chanukah, or you can go ahead and just do Kiddush Hayom on wine and not Ner Chanukah. So he says Ner Chanukah comes first. But we see according to the Ran that midiraita, the halacha seems that you have to make that Kiddush Hayom has to be on something, whether it's bread or wine. And then the Aruch HaShulchan quotes that the Ravan, he holds that it has to be not just bread, it has to be wine. A Torah obligation to make Kiddush Hayom on wine. Okay. So then in Sif Gimel, the Aruch HaShulchan says very, very surprising to me. He says, Ulaniya daiti nira, he wants to bring a proof that really we paskin that according to Torah law, you have to make Kiddush on wine. Why? He says, because it's the halacha that when you make Kiddush, you have to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. If you have to mention the exodus from Egypt. And if someone does not mention the exodus from Egypt, he would not be Yotze the mitzvah of Kiddush. That is what the Gemara says. So he says, so the problem is like this. If you're going to tell me that you're Yotze the mitzvah, the Yoraita of Kiddush without wine, and that means you're Yotze the mitzvah, the Yoraita of Kiddush in davening Friday night in the Tefillah, because there's no wine, so that means Chazal, the rabbis, made a tefillah where you could not be Yotze the Kiddush. Why? Because what's missing in the Friday night davening, we don't mention what? Yetzias Mitzrayim. He says, if you could be Yotze the Yoraita, the Torah obligation, with just words, why would Chazal leave out the Yetzias Mitzrayim from the Shemon Esrei, and we would miss an opportunity to be Mekayim the mitzvah the Yoraita right away? So for that reason, the Aruch HaShulchan says, it's a proof that midiraita you're not Yotze about wine, and therefore, in Shemon Esrei, they did not want to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim because they wanted us to know that you're not Mekayim the mitzvah until you come home and you make the Kiddush on the wine or the grape juice, according to the according to Aruch HaShulchan, and anything you want. And he says, and that's the truth of the matter is that he quotes the Yerushalmi, that the Yerushalmi says, and it seems that the Aruch HaShulchan, he says the Aruch HaShulchan seems to imply that really you need wine for the mitzvah d'oraita. So I was thinking, and when I saw this Aruch HaShulchan, why? Why is wine so important? So it's true that maybe you can be Yotze of Chal. You have to be Yotze on something because when you have something, it makes it more special. But Ravan says on wine, and even according to other Shitot, other opinions, everyone holds that l'chadchila, the best thing is wine. What is this? What is so special about wine? So the truth is, if you look, when the Gemara says you should mention, make Kiddush on wine, so there's a machloket rishonim. Why? Why is so important? If you look at source number 2 at the Shiltis. The Shiltis is one of the first Sevarim written after the time of Chazal, after the Gemara. And that was written by Rav Achoy Gaon, one of the Gaonim. Why did he write the Sefer? So it turns out, as I remember when I was a freshman in high school, that Rav Achoy Gaon had a son that wasn't so learned. I'm not sure what that means. And he had a hard time. So therefore, he wrote a sefer to every week on the parsha. You could go over the certain halachas that were relevant to the parsha. So in Parshas Yisro, which deals with Shabbat, he says, Uminola on the al yayin. He says, why on wine? Why not bread? To Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani of Rabbi Yonason. Minayin she'ein omrim shira el yayin. How come you only say shira when we sing on wine? And the Rishonim point out what that meant is in the Beit HaMikdash, when they said shira, we have to understand what shira is. So they would only do it on wine. They would say it on the korban nisachim, on the wine libations they pour in the mizbeach. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, v'tomer lehen agefen ichdalti as tiroshi hamasaymayach elakim va'anoshim. So there's a pasuk, there's a certain mashal. The Geffen said, "Have I ever held back from my grapes, which is mesameach God and people?" So Gemara says we understand how grapes make people happy. They have wine. Wine makes people happy. But the question is, how does wine make HaKadosh Baruch Hu happy? He said, because when you sing Shira on wine. So for that reason, since you sing Shira on wine, that makes HaKadosh Baruch Hu happy, because through the wine you sing Shira. So we have to understand what exactly is Shira. Now, the truth is that the Ran also says that the Kiddush that we make is really Shira. The Kiddush we make is really Shira. So why? Because he asks the question. So we make Kiddush at night, right? And we make Kiddush in the morning. What's the din to make Kiddush in the morning? Really, the din to make Kiddush in the morning is to make a bracha, Bar Pri Hagafen. That's it, Bar Pri Hagafen. As a matter of fact, the Kiddush in the morning is called Kiddusha Rabbah, the Great Kiddush. And there's some Rishonim say, why is it called the Great Kiddush? Because it's Lashon Sagi Nor, it's euphemism. It's really a very small Kiddush. The custom in my family is just to make the Bar Pri Hagafen. And people find it very fascinating, actually, because you're used to a longer Kiddush. I always tell people the reason why is someone told me, a cousin of a descendant of the Chazan Yosel Rosenblatt, that Friday night he has a lot of nigunim for the Zmirot on Shabbat, Friday night Zmirot, but he has nothing for Shabbos day. He says, why? Because when he came home Shabbos day, what time did Musaf end when he davened Musaf? What time? 2:30, whatever. He says he was exhausted, he was tired, he wanted to make Kiddush, he wanted to make a motzi, eat his cholent, and go to sleep. That was it. He was exhausted. They say the same thing. When the Soloveichiks come home from Shul on Shabbos, they're very tired and exhausted. I'm not saying to go to sleep. They have no time for a long Kiddush to make Bar Pri Hagafen, He says, why Kiddusha Rabbah? So the Ran actually asked the question. He says, why did they make a takana to make Kiddush in the daytime? Because since the honor of the day, the third line of source number 10, is Meseches Pesachim Kuf Vav Aleph, so they wanted to make a zeicher for the Kiddush, so they said the Bar Pri Hagafen. And just Bar Pri Hagafen. That's it. Why? Because that's the Cholas HaKiddush. And he says, and why? So he says, because since all you say is Shir is only on wine, so he says, so since we're going to start the meal, and we are going to go ahead and make a Bar Pri Hagafen, right? It's like we're starting the meal by giving Shira to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there's a difference. We make the Bar Pri Hagafen to say that this is the bracha, which symbolizes Shira, and we want to say the Shira, and that one bracha is enough. So the Ran, the Shiltas point out that the point of Kiddush, and the point of Kiddush on wine, is in order to go ahead and to have the Shira, to symbolizes that the Shira, that the Kiddush has to be a certain sense of Shira. Now let's understand what exactly is Shira. What exactly is Shira? So if you look at source number 11, this is the Gemara. How do you know that you only say Shira on wine? Quotes the pasuk that we quoted, and he says, and Tosfos says there, what does it mean? You don't say. What does it mean that you only say Shira on wine? We say Shira a lot. So Tosfos says that at what point do we sing Shira in Beit HaMikdash? We don't sing Shira when you sprinkle the dam, when you sprinkle the water, only when you pour. When you pour the water, only when you pour the wine. All right. However, we definitely say Shira at other places. When Am Yisrael shechted the Korban Pesach, they said Shira. But in terms of the Mizbeach, the only time they said Shira is when they poured the wine in the Mizbeach. That's Tosfos Meseches Brachas of Lamed Hey Aleph. Now, in source number 13, the Svas Emes. So he says, what does that mean? That you're only mesamech HaKadosh Baruch Hu of wine. The Gemara asked the question. Gemara asked the question. How are you mesamech HaKadosh Baruch Hu of wine? Because you say Shira of wine. But he says, even if you don't say Shira, there's a lot of other simcha that you do. Because when you do a mitzvah when you go ahead and you do the mitzvah of eating korbanos. That's also Mesamech HaKadosh Baruch Hu. From the korbanot you have the Samach L'vnei Hashem Elokecha. And he goes on, and he says, and there's so many mitzvahs that bring simcha. But what's the answer? The answer is, he says, that Shira is a simcha atzuma le'elokim. That when you sing Shira, it's a simcha atzuma le'elokim. That brings a simcha atzuma le'elokim. So we have to understand, what exactly is this great simcha to God that is symbolized by Shira, that according to the Shiltas is the reason why we make Kiddush on wine. So what I'd like to do to understand this is to understand what exactly is Shira. So we translate Shira as song. However, we know that when we speak about Shiur, we have to go back to the Torah. What is the Shiur in the Torah? So my father, and he connected this in many ways, but as we know that what is Shiur? So the Shiur in the Torah is Az Yashir, is Hazinu. There are Shiras in Tanakh, Shiras Devorah, after the miracle against Sisera. There is the Shira of David, and when David, was victorious over all his enemies. And what differentiates Shira from the rest of the Torah? If you look at any Shira, almost all Shiras, what you find is that there's more space than words. Now, what does that mean? In general, the Torah, it's straight. However, when it comes to Shira, there is definitely space. Okay, so he says, and the Gemara says, at least according to Rashi, the Gemara Megillah, source number 15, that on a Shira you have double space than what's written. Okay, and double space than what's written. So now, my father asked a question. Look at source number 14 in Shmos Perikut Gimel. This is the chiyuv to put on tefillin. Lemantia Torah Hashem beficha ki biyod chazaka otziacha Hashem miMitzrayim. So the question is, what does the tefillin have to do with your mouth? Lemantia Torah Hashem beficha. You should have a sign on your hand, by your heart. So in order that Torah Hashem should be in your mouth. What's the connection between tefillin and what comes out of your mouth? So the obviously mouth represents communication. And there are really, in a certain sense, two ways that we communicate. Okay, and sometimes we communicate with, as my father say, prose, which means we communicate, we say something. But a lot of times when we communicate, there's emotion, and there should be emotion. Sometimes there's more emotion, and sometimes there's less emotion. A song, Shira, is really, in a certain sense, when there's a lot of emotion. So, in other words, sometimes when we say something, it comes straight from the intellect, and sometimes a lot comes from the heart, which represents passion. And usually it's a combination of both. There should be a combination of both. However, sometimes it sounds like it's coming straight from the intellect, and sometimes it sounds like it's coming straight from the heart. And the HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us, I want you to put on tefillin, because the tefillin represents something by the head, which represents intellect, and something by the heart, which represents passion. And therefore you have to understand that when you are speaking Torah Hashem, so it has to come from the intellect and from the heart. You have to think of it, has to be smart, it has to be correct, but also it has to be passionate. And therefore he says there's tefillin to remind us that our words have to come from both places. And it's fascinating that the tefillin shall rosh, the intellect, so that's the Gemara Maseches Brachos, Davav Med Aleph, that is for everyone to see. Everyone sees the tefillin shel rosh, the tefillin that goes on our head. But the tefillin shel yad, that not everybody sees. The tefillin shel yad, that's hidden, that's only for Am Yisrael. He says, as a matter of fact, if you go, the Gemara says, Masechet Brachot, the source number 16, that the tefillin is strength for Am Yisrael, because the nations will see. Ki ro, v'ro kol Am Haaretz, ki Shem Hashem nikra alecha v'yiram emeka. They'll see the tefillin shel rosh. But the tefillin shel yad, does not represent strength. Why? So Tosas points out, because the tefillin shel rosh, everybody sees. Tefillin shel yad, nobody sees. So the tefillin shel rosh, which symbolizes the intellect, that's for everybody to see. The tefillin shel yad, the tefillin by the heart, that's for Am Yisrael. Only we can detect, understand the passion that we have, that we have for Torah Hashem. So that is something very important when it comes to serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So now, my father explained that when it comes to the Sefer Torah, there is a halacha when it comes to Sefer Torah that you have to go ahead and when it comes to Sefer Torah, what we have is the halacha of mukav kavil, that every letter has to be surrounded by parchment. And the halacha is, when it comes to this parchment, that if there's one letter not surrounded by parchment, the Sefer Torah is puzzle. Even if you have a letter written at the very end of the page, and because of that there's no parchment around it, the the letter is puzzle. Why? He says because the letters represent the intellect. You know, we say the dibur and the klaf, the space, represents the passion. So everything has to have some passion. Shiur, of course, has to have much more passion. That's Shiur. So therefore, when a person says something with passion in Shiur, it brings tremendous simcha to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, tremendous happiness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So now let's come back and speak about how this applies to Shabbos. I think the reason for making wine, if wine represents Shiur, and Shiur represents passion, I think what the Torah is telling us, Chazal, the Torah, is it's important to make Kiddush on wine. Because we can come into Shabbos thinking, wow, Shabbos is a mitzvah. Or Shabbos is a mitzvah. However, we make Kiddush on wine when Shabbos begins to remind us that when you come to Shabbos, it's not just a mitzvah. You have to be excited about Shabbos. So therefore, it's not that you have to drink wine in order the wine should make you excited. No, you don't have to drink wine that way. But when you make the Kiddush on wine, you realize this is Shiur, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu is demanding when it comes to Shabbos, to look at Shabbos is not just a mitzvah. Even though every mitzvah requires passion. But Shabbos is something that you have to be excited about. And you have to be excited about Shabbos itself. And that's the secret of wine according to the Shiltus and according to the Ran. When you come into Shabbos, you have to be very excited because Shabbos is coming. And it goes beyond. It goes beyond the food. As a matter of fact, as we know, there's a halacha that the challah has to be all covered up when you come into the house. Why? There are three opinions in the Rishonim. One opinion why we cover the challah up is Zeicher L'man, because when the man came down on Erev Shabbat, on Erev Shabbos, so it was covered by towel on top and towel on the bottom. That is according to, that's one shita. The other opinion is, well, you don't want to go ahead, you don't want to embarrass the bread. What do you mean, how are you going to embarrass the bread? Because, you know, a whole week you always make a motzi first. And now on Shabbos you're going to make a bar for your geffen first in order not to embarrass the bread, so we cover the bread up. Okay, that's really a lesson for us. The third opinion is the opinion of the Rashbam. The Rashbam holds the reason why you cover the challah is because when you come into the house to make Kiddush, you have to realize that the most special thing about Shabbos, it's not the challah. As a matter of fact, the Rashbam points out, it's not any of the food. No matter how good the food is. The most important thing about Shabbos is it's Shabbos. It's Kiddush. And therefore, you go ahead and you cover up the challah. And I have to tell you, my father, in his house, there was nothing on the table besides challah when he made Kiddush on Friday night, and the challah was covered up. And when he would go to a hotel, he would go to yeshiva, and they had cucumber salad on the table, it was all covered up. You come to the table, sometimes you come, there's like 7 salads on the table, there'd be everything covered with napkins. Why? Because that's the point of Shabbos. The point of Shabbos is to be excited about Shabbos. And even though it's the mitzvah of Onik Shabbos, and it's all very important. We have to come in realizing there's a special excitement to Shabbos, and that's the point of making Kiddush over wine. Why? To remind us that Shabbos is like Shiur. It requires passion. It requires excitement. That's the secret of Shabbos. When you keep that in mind, know that we can be more excited about Shabbos. That would be an opinion according to the Shiltus, that the point of Shabbos, of taking wine on Shabbos, is in order, and Shabbos morning is for us to realize that there's something very, very special, very, very special about Shabbos, and just to be excited. I remember my father had an opinion, and the Rav also, that a person, just say during Sfiras Omer, right? Sfiras Omer entering the 3 weeks, without getting all the minhagim, what a minhag is, but my father felt, and my uncle, that a person shaves every Erev Shabbos, they should shave during the Sfiras Omer, during the 3 weeks, and even if Shavuos is, Tisha B'Av is a nidcha, and Tisha B'Av is really on Shabbos, you should shave Erev Shabbos, L'Kavod Shabbos. That was their opinion. And he once said, I don't care if someone is stuck in some hotel where there are no non-Jews, no Jews around, in the being in a room, you still should dress L'Kavod Shabbos. Why? Because you have to be excited. Shabbos is something special. And therefore, we come in the house, we make Kiddush on wine. Remember, wow, this is symbolized to remind us that Shabbos is supposed to be a Shira. What does that mean? Let's say someone doesn't want to sing. Some people don't like to sing. All right? They don't have to sing. In my house, my father didn't really sing so much. At least most of his life he didn't sing. But still, even about the singing, you can still be excited. It's something to be passionate about. It says, wow, it's more than just a mitzvah, which requires a little excitement. Shabbos requires a lot of excitement. And that is the lesson, according to the Shiltus, of why we make Kiddush on wine. That's according to Shiltas. Yeah. On bread first, but that could be. So, but here, because Kiddush is special, you would make on Kiddush also. I once heard that I think Rav Shraga Mendelovich said back in the story that he says, "What? Did you ever see a challah getting embarrassed?" The point is for us to realize, not to embarrass somebody else. Okay, that's according to the Shiltas. Tosfos has a different opinion. He says, why do we make Kiddush on wine Friday night? Why? He didn't make Einon Shidol Yayin. So if you look back, at source number 3, so Tosfos says because you're supposed to remember Shabbos. What's the idea of remembering Shabbos? What does it mean to remember Shabbos? Well, remember Shabbos in a certain way, that Shabbos should be celebrated in a certain way. So what does it say? The Shiur Ksiv al Yayin, because when it comes to remembering, it's mentioned next to wine. Zachru ki yayin levanon. Remember ki yayin levanon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking about what He's going to do for the Jews in Mitzvah Hashem, when it'll be good for the Jews. I'll remember you like the yayin of Lebanon, and naskirei dochech meyayin. I'll remember your love more than wine. Okay, so obviously, if you want to understand the point of wine, we have to understand these psukim. So if you look at source number 18. There's a Hosea, there's a pasuk in Hosea, Perik Yudalit, pasuk Ches. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was talking about the reward that's going to come to the Jews in the future. We'll sit in His shade. Yichyu, the dog will flourish. Ki gefen zichro, ki yain levanon. What does yain levanon mean? So the Radak points out that yain levanon is the best. He says is the best wine, and he says the best wine for smell and for taste. So and he says it's the best wine for smell and for taste. So I was thinking, what's the idea of the smell of wine? What does that symbolize? The smell of wine and maybe even the taste of wine. What does the smell of wine symbolize? So I was thinking, when a good smell symbolizes the fact that people want to be near somebody. If someone has a bad odor, you want to stay away. A nice odor, a pleasant odor, people want to go, they want to be near a pleasant odor. And I think that maybe the idea of wine, according to this on Shabbos, is to symbolize when Mekadesh Shabbos, Shabbos should be done in a way where it's very pleasant to be there on Shabbos and to be with you on Shabbos. What does that mean? There's a very famous Gemara in Masechah Shabbos of Kufi Testament Aleph. Very famous Gemara. Gemara says, Amr lo Kesel of Yeshua ben Chananya. So, I remember seeing a story as a kid. The Caesar was walking around, a Jewish town, and he passes by a house, and all of a sudden the smell of the chicken soup comes outside the door, and he smells the chicken soup. He says, wow, this smells so good. I remember seeing the story, all right? And as you get older, you realize Caesars did not go for walks in town smelling chicken soup, all right? But he says, why does the tafshil of Shabbos taste so good? Why is the reach so nodef? So he says, we have a tavlin echad, yesh lanu, we have a spice, b'Shabbos shemo. And the name of this spice is Shabbos. Shanu matilim latocho, that we put into it, the reicho nodef. And its smell is very strong, it's pungent. He says, Tamerlo, tnulo menu. Give me it. Amrlo, kol hamashabbos the Shabbos. Anyone who keeps Shabbos, mo'olo, it helps him. V'she'enu mashabbos Shabbos, enu mo'olo. You want this tafshil of Shabbos, you have to keep Shabbos. It's a great story, okay? So the food on Friday night is delicious, which is true. But I don't want to say God forbid any heresy. But I'm not necessarily sure that the best food you have during the week, is Shabbos food. I might be very honest, okay? Like if let's say, for example, a person. I'll give an example. I enjoy my most favorite cup of coffee is Shabbos morning, but it's not like during the week, because on Shabbos morning it has to be a kosh lishi. It's not done the same way. It's not. I don't have a filtered cup of coffee on Shabbos morning, or you have a steak during the week. You don't have a steak on Shabbos. So what does this Gemara mean? Or as one of my friends once said to me, at least back back when I was a kid, so the chicken soup was made on Erev Shabbos. By the time he got to Friday night, it was very fatty, right? He says, but Sunday night leftovers, you took the fat off, it was much better. Okay, so what does this Gemara mean, the best food? So I thought, maybe I saw this. What's shot in this Gemara? Shot in the Gemara is the case are heard about Shabbos, and he saw the Shabbos environment is an amazing, amazing environment. Okay, as a matter of fact, Erev Shabbos there seems to be always something always going on that's trying to push us to arguments and machlokes. The Gemara says, and that's why we sing Shalom Aleichem. We want peace to come to our house. And Friday night, if things go well, which Mitzvah Shem they should most weeks, peace and harmony settle over the house. And someone looking into, I would say, a normal, functional, religious Jewish house on most Friday nights should be very, very impressed. And the Kesha said, wow, how do you do that? It's amazing. He says, I have what's called a tafshil of Shabbos. What does a tafshil, what does a tafshil of Shabbos mean to me? What's a tafshil of Shabbos? He says, if you keep Shabbos, a taste of Shabbos. If you want to experience the Shabbos atmosphere, you can only do it if you keep Shabbos. Only, that's it. And that's the idea of maybe that and people want to hang out with people who keep a spirit of Shabbos. You know, I remember sometimes you go into someone's house and people are screaming at each other, and you never want to go back there again. You never want to go back. Who wants to go to such a house? Who wants to go to such a house? He says, it doesn't make a difference how the food tastes. He says, you want to come where you see there's peace and harmony. He says, where there's a good smell, a good odor. So wine symbolizes a good odor. Something which somehow or another will stay with you, will be with you. Something will, so you want to be with them. You want to be with them. And that's another message of Shabbos you make on wine, because you want the smell, the good smell of Shabbos. The good smell, the good odor, the pleasant odor where people want to be around. You have to have Shabbos is to be something where people want to go ahead and people want to be near you. That's the kind of Shabbos you have to have. And that's obviously one of the ideas that we sing Shalom Aleichem. For those who sing Shalom Aleichem is we're trying to send a message. It has to be Shalom in the house. That's a true Shabbos. And then the Radak mentions the taste of Shabbos. What's the taste of Shabbos? The taste of Shabbos is the idea that when you taste something, so taste stays with you, or it should stay with you. And the idea of Shabbos is that you have to create a Shabbos where the Shabbos is going to stay with you. We say in the Kiddush, Vayavarach HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed the seventh day. What does it mean to bless the seventh day? What does that mean to bless a day? After all, we understand to bless a person. You want to bless a business. How do you bless a day? My father explained that what's really a bracha? What's a bracha? What's a blessing? He says, we have a blessing where Yaakov Avinu blessed Ephraim and Menashe. That B'cha Yivarech Yisrael, all Jews will bless their children and be like you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed Abraham, that all the families will bless their children through you. A true blessing is when people are like you. That's a true blessing. He says Shabbos has to be blessed also. That when Shabbos ends, Shabbos doesn't go away. Shabbos stays with you throughout the whole week. And therefore it has to be like a taste. A taste really is supposed to stay, to remain. And we have to mention when you're Makadosh Shabbos, sanctify Shabbos, it has to be sanctified in a way where the Shabbos stays with you. As a matter of fact, the Gemara which says if the Jewish people would keep 2 Shabbatot, Mashiach would come. So he says, my father said, what is it, 2 Shabbos? Why not put on tefillin 2 days? Why not daven twice in a row? He says, no. He says, you keep 2 Shabbatot, that means you keep Shabbos and you keep after Shabbos. The spirit of Shabbos stays with you. That's the idea. That is the idea of the taste of Shabbos. And that's when you make Kiddush. You keep that in mind. That's how you celebrate Shabbos. Okay. So that's enough. Then the other pasuk, which the Tosas quotes, a very famous pasuk, Naskirei Dodech Miyayin. So the Malbim points out in source number 22, we want to remember your love more than wine. So what do you mean more than wine? Think that Malbim says, they're saying is the love we have of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the greatest in the world. It's even the greater than wine. So what does wine symbolize for us in the physical world? A good wine symbolizes the greatest pleasure, the greatest enjoyment. And therefore, I think we have to feel when Shabbos comes and understand that this is the greatest pleasure, the greatest pleasure that a person can have, to realize when Shabbos comes in, be excited, but also realize this is the greatest pleasure a person can have is Shabbos. And then one last point. So there's a Gemara in Masechah Shabbos, Daf Samach Zayin Amud Bet. It's a fascinating Gemara. Source number 23. Ma'aseh b'Rabbi Akiva. There was an incident of Rabbi Akiva. She'asa mishta livno. He made a party for his son, probably a wedding. Val kol kos v'kos shehevi, in every single cup that he brought, Amar, he said, Chamra v'chaya l'fum Rabbanon, Chaya v'chamra l'fum Rabbanon l'fum Talmideihen. Wine and life to the rabbis, life and wine to the rabbis, and to their students. And to their students. So, not the Forshim, but the contemporary people, the Forshim say today, that that's the source for saying, L'chaim, when you drink, L'chaim life. What's the idea? What's the idea of drinking it? So there's a fascinating Das Kainim. The Das Kainim says, what's this idea of Rabbi Akiva's talking about? And we say L'chaim. The Das Kainim talks about saying L'chaim, right? He says, actually, as we know, that at least amongst the Sfardim, and I hear Ashkenazim doing also, that when they say Sabri, the Sfardim scream out L'chaim. Okay, this has a source which goes back hundreds of years. He says, Lefisha, the Das Kainim says, Lefisha niknasa misa la'adam, since death was, since death came to man because of wine, we know that according to one shot in Chazal, the Eitz Hadas was a geffen. Okay, and we know that other times things happen because of wine. Noach sinned with wine. We know that what happened with Lot with wine. So therefore, if wine can bring death, Nagua Olam, the Olam has a custom. Kishamavarech b'tzibur. When someone makes a bracha b'tzibur, Omri Savri Maranon, v'heim on, everyone answers l'chaim. He says, "V'chein matzina b'shili me'isha, ma'aseh b'Rabbi Akiva shasa mishta livno, v'al kol kos v'kos amar chamar v'chaya l'fum rabbanon l'fum talmideihan." So it seems kind of strange that really when we drink wine, we remember the death that it caused, the problems that it caused, and for this reason we say l'chaim. So I was thinking that if that's the case, so wine really teaches us that something happened that was bad, but we have to learn to appreciate what we have. That since wine caused death, you say l'chaim. And since wine caused death, Rabbi Akiva was saying, Chamar v'chaya. What does it mean? You are alive, watch yourself, and appreciate what you have. That's what wine is. That's what wine symbolized, to appreciate it. That's why Rabbi Akiva says, Chaya chamra. She says, wine and life, appreciate wine and life. Remember what they had. And maybe for that reason, actually, we made basically a, there's a halacha that if Chazal and Masakin, the bracha of a Tova Meitiv in Birkat HaMazon, after what happened was when Beitar was destroyed, so the Romans not allowed the Jews to bury the Jewish dead. And it was a very big miracle that the dead did not decay. And then finally, when he got permission to go ahead and to bury, right, they were Masakin Tova Meitiv. Why? Because whatever's going on, it was a terrible tragedy. But at least to appreciate the fact that you're able to bury the dead and you're able to move on. And we make the same brach on wine. Why? Again, because wine is about appreciation. It's time to appreciate what you have. And I think that maybe that's also the message of Shabbos. The message of Shabbos is to appreciate what you've done. What is it, what you've done? Shabbos is me'eno. What happened in the first Shabbos? HaKadosh Baruch created the world and he rested. What does it mean he rested? We don't really know, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked back at the world and said, this is what I created in 6 days of creation. Right? So for that reason, HaKadosh Baruch Hu appreciated what he did, and that's the same thing of us in Shabbos. Our day of rest on Shabbos is to appreciate what we've done for the first 6 days. And that's why Shabbat is a glimpse of Olam Haba, because Olam Haba is also to appreciate what we have done what we have done in the previous world. So Shabbat comes in, and we're supposed to say, okay, we make Kiddush on wine. Wine is about appreciation. Shabbat is a day to appreciate what you've done and what you have. It's a chance to sit back and really appreciate. So just to quickly summarize, it'll take 2 minutes. Basically, the point of the shiur was, what's the point of wine? whether you're sitting down on Shabbos, on Yontif, when you're sitting down even on Purim a little bit. What's the point of wine? What's the secret of wine? So according to the Shiltis, wine teaches us to sing Shira. We're supposed to go ahead and have a sense of passion, to be excited about something. It's not just Stam a mitzvah Shabbos. And then according to Tosfos, so he pointed out wine has a reach, a smell, a good odor, a pleasant odor. Shabbos has a pleasant odor. People should enjoy to be at Shabbos. Our behavior should be led according to that it should be a pleasant Shabbos. People should want to enjoy Shabbos, the taste. It should stay with you. And also we have to look at Shabbos as the ultimate pleasure, and then to really appreciate what we have. And I'll just finish off that I think that when we speak about Purim, the point that I gave a share on this last year about what's our approach on Purim is to be relaxed. But, I always say that when you come down to the Suda on Purim and you spend the whole day doing mitzvos, it's time to be proud of it. And you're supposed to have a certain feeling, a certain satisfaction. And that's symbolized by the wine also. But it's not an obligation, on any level, to really an over excess. The wine is supposed to remind us. The wine reminds us to have passion. The wine reminds us that it should be a pleasant day. People want to be with us. We should celebrate the day in the way it will remain with us. And also, the day should be a day where we see as the ultimate pleasure. And of course, a day to appreciate what we have. And that really is the message of Shabbos, to look back and appreciate what we've done, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us, and that's why today, giving our daughter HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everyone should have a wonderful day. What? Yeah. Yeah. I think it's too early, like 10 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. Right. You're right. Someone told me, I was talking to my mother, sometimes when they drink wine, they drink less. The other is wine. And wine has a smell. Wine has a taste. You touch wine, has a look, right? The only sense it's missing is the noise. That's why it's too bad. I'm not sure what to do with that. I'm not sure. Okay.
I just put down, it's not even, because you talk about wine. What about people, what about people who don't like wine? And I'm going to double that question. There's always wine. What is grape juice? I understand the diet. What is grape juice good? It's not the sameach like wine does.
So, it's interesting.
I came up with the potential.
That's a good word. It's a good word. I don't know.
That was my word.
It's a good word. My father and my uncle held certainly when it comes to tasting. My uncle gave Torah. He certainly used to wine at the Seder. And he helped the mice. He used to to the Seder also. So
okay. I just wanted you to say to my wife.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy for saying that the challah shouldn't be on the table at all.
My father, he would put it on the table, he would cover it, and it wasn't able to put it on the table, but he covered up all the food right.
We do too.
Yeah.
I heard
Yes.
But we don't put the challah on the table at all.
Right, so I think my father had the counter table. I'm not sure, remember, but certainly there was never any other food. I remember when I got married, actually, because my in-laws always had. I said, it's sure learned.
You heard the story on Samina's house. You heard the story, please don't be that. We learned. We said maybe you should flip. I said maybe you should learn. I saw that. That's not the first answer. Chicago.
Yeah.
Who did that? Like somebody's responsible.
Nothing, not even the Chol.
Like somebody's responsible.
The shit is there.
Sorry.
No, I heard you. I still hit the door. I heard every word. I heard every word. I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
I want to disturb it.
Yeah.
We know one person who says it has minhag from his father, not to cut the challah and Shabbos noon. Have you ever heard that?
It's mentioned in the postscript. I saw this year. I forgot because the reason it could be is because Shabbos already came in, and you're ready to Zeichel Lamon, so that's the reason why. Right.
So why come to argue out? It's almost time.
I just missed the last time you guys had. Oregon was nice.
Recruiting?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Crew? Oh, really? I don't know. You know somebody to go to the yeshivas, you go to the middle school.
Nah, I went to last month I went to Shiur.
You work too hard for sure? You work too hard?
The first part of the day is, pretty because school is the one that I want you to be my free once the afternoon sets in, the traffic in this town is
I usually take a bus here and I drove because